Now, it is true they've already come for the First Amendment through their friends in England, but don't tell that to Glenn Beck or Rush Limbaugh. They're acting as though they're the first victims because they've lost advertisers. Of course, what happens if you're actually banned by a nation? Oh, my God. Well, you don't talk about it if you're part of corporate America and part of corporate radio and television and corporate media. You certainly don't mention an actual talk show that was banned by a nation. So what would you like me to talk about? I'm just having fun today. That's all. It's summertime. I've got the summertime giddiness. Most normal people are not even listening to the radio today. If you're listening, it means you're not normal. It really means that. If you're actually listening to this show on a hot Thursday, August 27, 2009, it means you probably have troubles in your life. Because actually you should be somewhere. You should either be at Martha's Vineyard trying to get a look at Obama somehow. Even if you can't see him, actually, you can say you almost saw somebody who saw him. Or you could be at the airport at Martha's Vineyard writing down the tail numbers of the planes that are not there, of the people from Goldman Sachs and Citibank flying in and out to see what they can get out of the administration next. You could be doing things like that if you were. But since you're not a normal person, you're listening to talk radio on a hot Thursday, we can just talk amongst ourselves because we are not the ubermensch of the kind of that this Brinkley character talks about with Ted Kennedy or Howard Dean. He's certainly an ubermensch. He would be. Wouldn't Howard Dean be an ubermensch? Or Chuck Schumer's an ubermensch. He's got big feet. Is shoe size got something to do with ubermenschen or the amount of alcohol that you can consume? What actually makes somebody an ubermensch? This historian referred to Ted Kennedy as a form of ubermensch when talking about him as a person. Would Chuck Schumer qualify as an ubermensch because of his shoe size? Would Howard Dean qualify as an ubermensch because of his... Well, let's leave it go at that. It is a family show. And now we have Arianna Huffington, another wonderful prize lover of the poor, even though she herself married a rich man in order to take his name and his money. Arianna Huffington talks about the death of Ted Kennedy and how it's a moral imperative to pass the health care reform for him. Now, why would Arianna Huffington, a woman who married for money and took the man's name, be caring so much about health care reform? Can anybody figure that out? Let's hear clip 7.
Senator Kennedy passed the torch, the JFK torch, the Kennedy torch.
Wait a minute, did she say he passed the torch? But I thought this woman was a prize debater. Did she say that Ted Kennedy passed the torch? Can anyone call the show and tell me what a torch is? What in the world is a torch? Beowulf, do you know what a torch is? Play that again. I want to hear what a torch is.
Senator Kennedy passed the torch, the JFK
All right, yeah, she passed the torch. She passed the torch. All right, take a walk. Take a walk. You pretended you were a Republican before you got married, and then, after the money came flowing in, you got the name and the gelt, and then moved on, the gelt and the pelt, boom. And then we got a lot of things to talk about since we're ubermensch. I mean, not ubermensch. We can talk about these things. Here's Senator John McCain yelling at a disruptive woman. Let's hear clip 14.
You're going to have to stop or you're going to have to leave. This woman right there, please. Goodbye. See ya.
All right, now that's heroic, John. Wow, that's heroic. That really makes you hot stuff. The McCain-Kennedy immigration reform bill was really something too, John. That really helped your presidency. The McCain-Kennedy, this bill, the McCain-Kennedy, that bill. Angry crowd at Virginia Town Hall goes nuts when Rep. Jim Moran demands to see an audience member's ID before allowing him to answer. Who is Jim Moran? Is he a D or an R? He's a D. Well, the Democrats have a right to ask for someone's ID. That's the way Obermensch do it. I mean, in Adolf's land, all of the Obermensch demanded to see certain IDs and party membership. Why should Jim Moran not ask to see someone's ID at a town hall meeting? He's a Democrat. That's the way they work. Eventually, you're going to have to show a card, not a union card. I mean, a party card, the way they did in old Germany in the 30s. If you weren't a member of the party, you couldn't get a job. If you weren't a member of the party, you couldn't vote. In fact, if you didn't have a party card, you were put on a railroad car to go work somewhere for nothing. So I can understand why Representative Jim Moran demands to see an audience member's ID card. Let's hear Jim Moran.
What does this say?
Well, that's just screaming. No, please, those are people screaming at a politician, a Democrat. That's not permitted. Jim Moran said we wouldn't be going to war in Iraq if it weren't for Israel. After all, he knows these things. That's why he asks for members' IDs before allowing them to ask a question. He's an Obermensch. See, there's Obermensch, and then there's the rest of us. And if you're not an Obermensch, it means you're an Untermensch. And if you're an Untermensch, well, you know what happens to you, don't you? It's coming soon. I'll be right back.
Savage.
I'm Kim Commando. You can keep up with all things digital Monday through Friday in the noon hour with My Digital Minute on Talk 910 KNEW.
I'm still trying to figure out, does anybody know what a Dorch is? Because she's a member of the Obermensch class, and if she says Dorch, maybe it's a code word for the Dorchester Hotel and some code words about England. I don't get it. Did she say that he passed the Dorch? Let me hear that one more time.
Senator Kennedy passed the torch.
The Dorch, see? The Dorch. Pass the Dorch. The Dorch. Senator. Why do they all care, the rich people care about the poor so much? And the rest of us who have to pay for it don't. Isn't that intriguing that the very rich are very interested in the very poor, while the middle class is not so interested in making sure that the very poor take any more of their tax money? I guess that's how it works. But then again, you have to be an Obermensch to understand how the rich think, because they think differently than you and I, in that they use your money to advance their social causes. And there's a reason for it. That's how they wind up as Obermensch. That's the way it is. But you see, God sees the truth but waits. In the end, he gets them all. He gets us too. But we hope that the Obermensch get a little worse treatment than we do at the end. Of course, there's no such guarantee. I've seen the good die young, and I've seen the good die horribly, and I've seen the bad live long and the bad live well. So, having said all of that, let's move on to talk radio. Wouldn't it be nice if there really was justice on earth? Wouldn't it be nice if everything you learned when you were a kid, that bad deeds are punished and good deeds are rewarded? Wouldn't life be wonderful if you could believe in Santa Claus? All that stuff that you learned in the pew. Wouldn't that be great if you could actually believe it? That in this life, the bad get punished and you get rewarded? I don't know. When I see a 5-year-old kid dying of leukemia without hair, screaming for his mother, I don't know. There's something wrong with that picture. When you go into a ward of children with cancer, there's something wrong with that picture. They can't all have done something so bad to have gotten cancer at such early ages, could they? Then, of course, the libs believe in karma, and they would say that they did something bad in a past life, and then they go on with their Prozacian ways. But for those of us who don't think that way, it's kind of painful how that disease is not talked about. How come you don't hear that childhood cancer is an epidemic? How come you never see pictures of children with cancer in the media? Why is there no sympathy for American children dying of cancer in the back wards? Why do you never see those pictures? Why is there only sympathy for, let us say, illegal aliens? Or, others, certainly not children. Why are children the most ignored component of American life today? Why don't politicians ever talk about family life or family values? Why is marriage never rewarded in America? Why is married life never supported by our political class? Why is the swinging lifestyle sort of winked at by the political class, while the married life is sort of rejected by them, even though they're basically all old white men and they're almost all married? Why do you never hear about their wives and children? Why do men not talk about their wives and children with pride anymore in public life? How come that's sort of gone by the way of the Dorch? Have we passed the Dorch to that extent? See, I'm having a good time today, as you can well see. I mean, I can tell you to go by to go by Bandit Britain, but I'm not going to tell you to do that, because either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. Now, if you do it, it won't change my lifestyle, and if you don't do it, it won't change my lifestyle. So, therefore, I'm free at last. And since I'm free at last, I can talk about anything else, including passing the Dorch. I can't get over that. Pass the Dorch. Kennedy passed the Dorch to who? What is Obama doing on his vacation? Can anyone answer me why he's on a vacation? What has he done that's so valuable so far? Let's see. He bailed out Goldman Sachs. He bailed out Citibank. He destroyed General Motors. He rewarded the unions. Has he achieved anything yet? Unemployment is way up. Banks are failing. The economy's about to be exposed for what it is. The dollar is worth about 20% less than it was when he took office. Now, it is true he inherited $1 trillion in debt from George Bush. George Bush left him with $1 trillion in debt. There's no question about it. But how do you resolve $1 trillion in debt by making it $3 trillion? Does anyone have an answer to that one? Or do you have to be a member of the Obermensch to understand how those mechanics work? In other words, if you inherit debt and you want to balance the books, do you incur more debt? Or is that only something you can understand if you don't speak English very well and you say Dorch instead of Torch, and you married into money for the name and the money, and therefore money doesn't really matter to you? You just marry someone else with money. It doesn't make sense to me. In other words, if I were broke because of debt I had incurred over an 8-year period, the first thing I would do is cut back on expenses. I wouldn't increase them. I wouldn't go and buy a house 3 times as big for triple the mortgage and go buy a new airplane, but that's what Obama did. He said, let's see, I inherited a house that's broke, so in order to fix this deficit, I'm going to borrow more money and buy a bigger house.